Hi y'all. Okay, this week I'm on the road traveling. Or maybe the road's on me. The real question is that I will be addressing in a very dear story from Cellini. The question is magic art a proper art form of fine art? Okay, I'm kind of looking forward to this one in particular because it's primarily going to be concerned with Cellini and something he told me a long time ago, that if I can just set it up first. I had flown into Greensboro, North Carolina. This was about 2004, 2005. And I had brought some things that Denny at Denny and Lee's, Denny Haney, was interested in, and so I wanted to meet him. I had never met him before. Cellini was going to introduce me, and Marianne was going to drive us all up to Baltimore. All my life in magic, I have, well, let me just say, I started out when I was a kid drawing and painting. I was formally trained starting at about 10 years of age, and I took private lessons, learning how to draw, learning watercolors. I was trained in a classical method, and modern art, I hated modern art. I didn't see any sense in it whatsoever. I liked Picasso's early works, maybe some of the Blue period, but that's about it. I thought everything he did after that, with the lone exception of one gigantic painting, Guernica, was trash. I still think that most of Picasso's work is trash. Jackson Pollock, whereas he was a great draftsman, he could draw, I think that his paint drippings is trash, and I do not understand the art world. I do understand it to the extent that it is more personality driven than it is actual works driven. That's why my favorite painter is probably of the last century and a half, maybe William Adolphe Bouguereau, a Frenchman who painted in a classical style. So, with that in mind, I've always been involved in the arts my entire life. I took music, later on in high school, acting, and it's something I've always enjoyed. Well, when I became involved in magic, there was no question in my mind that it was a beautiful art form. However, I looked around and there were so many discussions going on, almost debates among magicians in the literature, about the art in magic, the art of magic. Was magic an art? Everybody was questioning this, and I thought it was just a bunch of magicians acting insecure in, of course it's an art. But I wanted to know what Cellini thought, and this was a good time to ask him on the trip going up to Baltimore. So I posed the question. He was sitting in the passenger seat, Marianne was driving, and I was sitting in the back of the car. And I leaned up and I said, Jim, do you think magic is an art? And without hesitation, without missing a beat, he turned around to face me and he pointed in my face and he said, magic was the first art. I don't know what question I expected, but I didn't expect that one. And it hit me like a thunderbolt. I think the rest of the trip I was just quietly sitting in the back, pondering all the ramifications It was like you throw a rock into a still pool of water and all these ripples go out, and all of a sudden all those ripples start impacting and affecting everything else around. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized it fit. It all fits. And now you can see maybe why I started this particular vlog cast the way I did with that Vegetius quote. Because magic can incorporate all the other forms of art, and if you doubt that, you don't have to look very far to find really fine examples of it. I think it was René Levant. His cup and balls is one of the most beautiful tricks I may have ever seen in my life. It's absolutely gorgeous, and in it he quotes a Chinese poet, Li Po, I think it was, and recites a poem, one of Li Po's poems, doing the trick. This elevates the magic to such a degree. The presentation is absolutely beautiful, artful work. So, of course, song and dance is very common to incorporate into a presentation of magic. Painting, backdrops, sculptures, some like the Azra, Servet Leroy's Azra is just a beautiful illusion, and one of these days I'd like to make one of them. But so every other art form can be incorporated into magic, but it is only when I remember looking at in Florence, in Italy, Cellini's Benvenuto Cellini's sculpture of Perseus. It's a bronze statue. It's absolutely breathtaking. The detail, the beauty, the form, everything is just, it's perfect. To me, it's a better sculpture than or statue than, say, maybe David. I think Michelangelo's Pieta is probably a little better than Cellini's effort, but still, you can't get close enough to the Pieta to appreciate it. But when I stood there looking at that statue, I remember thinking, how could a person make this? This is as if even the David or the Pieta, any great piece of sculpture by Bernini or whoever, it almost looks like God carved it out of marble or cast it out of bronze, in Cellini's case. And so there's a sense of the divine behind it. There's a sense of that spark of creation that animates all of us, being involved somehow in the process of creating these things. And when they reach that, the highest descriptor, I guess accolade you could bestow upon them is to say they're absolutely magical. Because magic has no explanation, right? So, however, like every art form, we have tools that we work with. We have, as a painter has his brushes and his paints and canvas, so too we have our cards, our coins, and certainly every man that owns a set of brushes and paints is not maybe as great a painter as Norman Rockwell or somebody like that, but they do their best. So too do we. As artists, we choose what we say, we'll choose what we do, we'll choose how we do it. We create a piece of work, we create to satisfy that need in ourselves to create a thing of beauty. Well, getting back to Cellini, I remember sitting back sitting in that back seat, stunned, thinking to myself, how could he know that? What? Where did that come from? Of course, I was not going to ask him. How do you know that? So when I discovered the Vegetius quote, I was rather pleased with myself, because magic is obviously deception. We deceive. We do so openly and honestly, though. Unlike con games, unlike, well, Warcraft. I mean, if you're battling, say, if there's a Cold War going on, or there's a war going on, you're going to send in spies. They use all of our tools. They use disguise. They use simulation. All of these things. Of course, I'm not a member of the CIA, so I can't give you a rundown on all their various techniques, but I assure you, a lot of them come from magic. So deception is very, very part and parcel of war. If you're going to square off against another country, as Sun Tzu says, better to spend, a small fortune on a spy than to spend millions and waste human life fighting a battle that you don't know anything about. Invest the money in spies. So, like I said, it all fit together. So, with all that in mind, you and I have a choice. I guess you have a choice, because I've already made mine. You can treat this wonderful art as the art form and treat it with the respect it deserves, or you can continue, like so many do, wanting to buy a new trick and perform it with all the alacrity of a household chore. Most magicians tend to opt, I think, for the latter. I would hope those watching this vlog are inclined to treat it otherwise. Otherwise, I don't think you'd be watching this vlog, so that's nice. Cheers. This is part 1. I'll be going into part 2. I have a slight change of plans this time, in that I was going to run part 2 next week. However, due to circumstances, I think I'm going to change it up. I'm going to do another episode, a different episode next week, on a topic that I think you'll find of great interest. And it's timely in that we're all at the beginning of the high season right now, and the rush to make money during the next 3 months is paramount for us who are workers. This is the time when we make the majority of our money throughout the year. The reason why, what reminded me of the topic that I'm going to cover next week is D'Artagnan, a friend of mine, David. He has a podcast that you might check out. It's very informative. He's a rather opinionated fellow and holds some very strong opinions that I happen to endorse. So he has a podcast on iTunes. You can find it under the moniker Magic From Wherever I'm At. And it's worthwhile. He's got a few episodes up there already. Maybe he's on his 5th or 6th episode by now. I don't know. But they are really, really good. I enjoy them. And I think you will too. But let me just close this first episode by saying, and it will kind of foreshadow what's to come next week. It's like when Cellini told me what he said back there in the car all those many years ago between Greensboro and North Carolina and Baltimore, Maryland. When you encounter something profound like that, you can see how everything fits, how everything unrelated, perhaps extraneous subjects kind of fit into place. And that's what Cellini did for me then. He snapped everything into a certain perspective that I'm indebted to him to this day for. And next week I'll be covering topic that is of great importance. If there is one ingredient in every street show that makes it a great street show, not necessarily in the street, it could be in any venue, but what separates a good, perhaps great performer from one that is sort of mediocre? And what is that feeling? What ingredient is missing in the mediocre performers? And as a result, I guarantee you, if you incorporate this ingredient into your show, your hats will double. And I have no doubt about that. And you'll see why next week when I record and edit, and my God, I got a lot of work to do, especially during this season. It's raining today, so I was able to record this little insert here, kind of finishing up the first part. But part 2 of this I'll probably air that the week after next. But until next time, oh, and as I sign off here, I'm gonna, as I said last episode, I wanted to take you into my friend's house and show you a little bit of his work. It might surprise you. I love this guy. He's a great guy. I'm not going to tell you who he is, otherwise you'd know where I am, and I don't want that to happen. So, but I do want to take you into his living room and show you some of what he's done. And this is just a small aspect of the man's talents and abilities. Okay, until next week, we'll hope you have a good week, and see you next time. Ciao, ciao.